Well, hello. 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 Well, this is definitely not Hollywood, Steve. Uh, I'm here to do a Rat's Nest review. Rat's Nest, of course, because as we play with our pedal toys, we have cables that go everywhere, and we get a little bit of a rat's nest before we mount them to a pedal board or if we're just experimenting. And we hope not to catch a toe and kick the whole show across the floor. That's why I've got it on a desk, I suppose. Also, that's where my computer is. But I'm here to do the Rat's Nest review of the TC Electronic Flashback triple delay. Uh, this is part of the Flashback series. Unfortunately, this one is a little bit left field and was canceled about 2020 is when they discontinued this one. So it is a discontinued unit. But you can find it on the used market for a very reasonable price, which is nice. It's sort of a spiritual successor to the Korg SDD 3300. Don't take that too literally. In that, unlike the SDD 2000, SDD 3000, which was had a sampling things, and the SDD 3000, which made famous by Daniel Lanois and the Edge, and which of course drives the prices up about fivefold if you say the Edge used it. It's the STD 3300 was the 300 was the three. It had three separate delays engines in it, so you could do kind of some layering and some very nice textural effects. And it had a lot of routing things going on. This is a kind of a modern take on three individual delays. It doesn't have some of it trades some of the weird routing complexities that allows you to do phasing or flanging and a number of other effects. This one is more three separate straight ahead delay boxes from the Flashback series, and they're very useful, and it's got some very modern features that the 3300 didn't have. So I don't mean to make a direct comparison. That's not the point. But it is a triple delay system, and that's kind of the point. And that's really the whole point behind this one, unlike the X4 and the various Flashback delays. So the architecture is quite a bit different than the others. I will say the engines, though, I think are just the straight-ahead TC Electronic Flashback system. Excuse me. So it has, similar functions on that, and the basic I/O is similar. That this is a true stereo unit, and it does have analog dry through, so you get just an unconverted analog system. You can set it either for buffered or with some editing software, either for buffered or true bypass type systems. Honestly, with delay, I tend to prefer a buffered system. I know that for quite a while, I think people were very much true bypass, true bypass. If it's not true bypass, I won't use it. I think in the early 2000s, that was all the rage for a while. And that's not to discount that. I get that straight through. The reason I like it for delay is, say there is signal loading. It has to do with what this is doing. Unlike, say, a fuzz pedal, where you're so fundamentally altering the tone, you might want your undisturbed tone, with a true bypass, to just be what it is. And then when you kick it in, the fuzz is changing your tone so radically. That is the point, the difference in the tone. With a delay, I find, I want the same exact tone, or near as possible, the same tone as I'm getting with the units off. I want that same tone when I engage the unit, so the echoes, so that I'm echoing that tone. And just because it's time displaced and I'm making images of that, I want that tone consistent. So I don't want it to get brighter or darker. The dry signal to get brighter or darker. So you have the option here, which is nice. Which So the unit itself, though, let's get to the delays, because that's what this thing is, a delay pedal. There's three switches, as you see, and they work as presets. You can have three different sounds going on there, but unlike the other units in the series, I can have delay 1 make one sound, delay 2 make another sound, delay 3 make another sound. But if you notice, each time I turn it on and off, because I can have delay 1, and delay 2 and delay 3 on all at the same time. Or 1 and 3, I can choose to turn them on individually on or off, just like 3 regular distortion, or excuse me, just like 3 regular old stomp box pedals, just in the convenience of a single format, and you've got some nice control over some things that you wouldn't have with 3 individual stomp boxes. The engines themselves are, just as I mentioned, the Flashback series engines, so you can get all your various tones. And there's about 16 of them. And interestingly, there's 4 of them here at the top that are part of the tone print system. And if you're not familiar with what the tone print system is, it's a neat system where one can, during practice time, you can hook it up, you can hook your pedal up to a computer, and you run the app, and the app is free. It's just part of it. And you can load all kinds of presets. But more interesting for me, at least, I think for everybody, is you can, the little pencil icon, you have deep editing control over the pedal. And you can do all kinds of parameters, more than just the time, repeats, and mix that you have on the front. You can affect the saturation for to get kind of the more fuzzy, overdriven echoes, that you'll sometimes hear, more dirtier, I guess they'll just say dirtier echoes, that you might see on a tape machine or an old drum, oil drum machine, or even dirty analog, that kind of thing. All kinds of things, reverse delays, dynamic sensitivity, which allows you to do ducking type of effects. You can set modulation, anything from classic chorus to a through zero flange, and assign all the LFO stuff, and and all these things that that are going to vary depending on what type of system you're using, what type of modulation you're using. You can affect the controls. You can affect the basic product settings if you want buffered bypass or true bypass. If you want the dry signal to pass through, to be killed, so that you only have delay out of this. Sometimes you do that for if you're running it, say, in an aux send, auxiliary send, or effects loops that are parallel on an amp, that kind of thing. So you can modify. That's just sort of basic housekeeping functions. But you can also change the knobs, and because the knobs here, there's only 3 of them. And just very quickly to kind of describe it, the great thing about these kinds of systems, again, Source Audio and other companies also do this. Sonus does with their volume pedals and things, have software control. But the idea is, you set all your details up kind of in the shop, like your race car is being tuned by the mechanics. And then when you take it out onto the racetrack, out in the battlefield, in performance time on the stage, you just have 3 knobs to do. You don't have to deal with 30,000 of them. But because of that, what they allow you to do is a very, very nice system. I think they implemented this particularly well, is you can set not only the curves, the big circle there is where the knob position actually is at this moment. You can set, with little handles, set the curves, which is nice, but you can control multiple parameters, which is really, per model, which is really nice, because you could, for instance, set the time and the feedback on one knob. And that way, you just, if, for instance, you like it when the long delays are going, you want fewer repeats, and you want more repeats when it's low to get kind of a semi-reverby effect, or whatever you want. You can set that all, and you can control up to 3 different parameters per knob. So while it is Battlefield and 3 simple knobs, you can really tailor that so the knobs do what you want them to do, and they can do multiple things. So great system, really great system from that standpoint. I'm really impressed with that. It's come a long way. I think we're in kind of a nice golden age in terms of a sweet spot between with these programmable pedals um, of pedal, kind of straight ahead pedals on a pedal board, and some programming depth. There's a lot of that detailed programming you wouldn't do on stage anyway. So, or during, especially if you're doing, sometimes it's not just preset scenes like you see on so many things with just a single alpha wheel, but if you're an improvisational artist, you may want to adjust these things kind of real time. I think pedal guys tend to do that a little more. Uh, so you do have that access to the tone print system, which is really nice. Uh, there are some things that unlike three, as we go back to kind of coming up top, back up here to keep it battlefield. We can switch on the three different delays, and it can get kind of seriously out of control. We have, the ability to when we adjust the parameters, we have the ability here to choose which parameters we're actually adjusting. Delay 1, 2, or 3 with this little switch. The one up is 1, it's just a little toggle. In the middle is 2, down is 3. Honestly, I would have preferred, and I get it. This, you've got some board, some real estate, some panel real estate to deal with. Unless you're looking straight up at it, that is one complaint I do have. It's a little tough to see where it is. And if you're canted off here like I am, I'm in front of it by about 2 feet. It's very difficult for me to see. I would have preferred a rotary control, and with a chicken head, so it'd be very obvious. Because you can find yourself if you don't watch it playing delay 1 and trying to adjust the parameters, and nothing's happening because the knobs are set to deal with delay 2. So minor gripe, but it is a gripe. It could be streamlined. But we do have that control available to us, which is nice. Now, I was talking about the old SDD 3300 had all kinds of crazy routing. This is a much more streamlined routing. Basically, you've got, but it's nice because it's, I think, well done for really what you're going to use. There's a lot of times with those rack systems, there are weird parameters you will never use, or very few people will use it unless you're really getting into super sound design. This is more a pedal, and it has the soul of a pedal, and it feels like a pedal. But what this allows you to do is, say I set delay 1 up as a, so I make sure that I'm programming there. I'm going to just listen to delay 1 right there. I'm under I'm under demo lights, so it's fairly bright. I do wish the lights were a little bit brighter, the LEDs were a little bit brighter. But let's say I set up a kind of a traditional sort of slapback delay. So I'm in. Now I'm just tapping there. Ooh, touch style. But so I've got a slapback delay. Maybe I'm chicken picking, doing that kind of thing. Got kind of a 50s vibe going on. So I could set that up. I'm going to save it. We'll cover that in a moment. And then say I have delay 2 as a more atmospheric delay. Well, if I play both, I can play both at the same time. In parallel, you'll notice I get a slapback on the initial voice because delay 1 is creating a slapback, and delay 2 is creating the echoes off the same input signal, that dry input signal. So I get a slapbacked initial sound, but then just dry echoes, which has its place, absolutely. With serial, though, the output of delay 1 feeds delay 2. So even the atmospheric delays, the echoes, I get the slapback treatment. Make it real apparent with some modulation. There, the echoes are also modulated here. The echoes would be dry. And of course, when I have that serial up, I could do it with 1 and 3. I could do it with 2 and 3. I could do it with 1, 2, and 3. That, however, can become quite since it is a richer sound because I'm affecting the affected signals and then affecting those signals with the effect, it can at times get a little chaotic. Which has its place. You know, you can make some very dense things. You can even make a sort of a pseudo reverb. Reverb being a series of short uneven delays, essentially, as things get off the wall. Like I could, for instance, maybe I'll do a slapback on delay 1. Something along those lines. I'll save that off. Then maybe number 2, I'll use a little bit of a reverse delay, but I'll still make it real short. Let's make it real short. Let's actually go with a modulated analog. Save that off. And then delay 3. Again, I'm using all short delays because I want it to be... Let's go with a tube echo. Get a kind of a muddier sound. And save that off. And then when I do all 3, I'm going to get, sort of a pseudo reverb. There's a little echoey components, but I could, bring down the times a little bit to make it a little more reverby. Now in parallel, each line is going to be its own separate voice, so it'll be a little more streamlined, a little not quite as dense, whereas serial is going to be a little more dense, a little more diffused, because you're echoing echoes, and both have their place. One's just the complexity of sound isn't always necessarily the case because it could get muddy or a little more confused, where that's a little cleaner, a little more articulate. It's a little more articulate there, I think, where this is a little more. So, it's detail work, but there's some neat things you can do. So you got the serial parallel switch, which is something, you wouldn't have in 3 separate stomp boxes, which is pretty cool. The other thing is, it does have a tap tempo, but because let me go ahead and we'll do a little switcheroo again here. Let's give it a little. Let's give that sound a 1. Number 2, let's give it a nice modulated sound. There we go. But let's give it a different time value. That can be kind of nice. So we'll save that off at 2. And number 3, let's give it a very clean. I'm listening to number 2. We'll save that off. So we've got that. We've got that. And we've got that. So we've got 3 fairly distinct sounds. We turn them all on. Well, say we want to use the tap tempo. They tempo lock. It tempo locks across all three. Now there I changed the relative value of 3 compared to everything else. Which is a convenient feature just to keep everything, the show running. You know, everybody's listening to the same drummer. I guess put it that way would be the way to put it. Now, while we are listening to the same drummer, the triple delay does allow for expression control, and it's programmed in kind of the modern style of memory of setting of knob position memory, and it works individually with each of the delay engines. So, say I'm on delay 1, and I'm listening to that sound. I'm programming delay 1, and I'm listening to it. Well, I can go, you know, I can set my knobs the way I like them, and I can go, see, I'll go toe down for maximum there, and I'll set it, say, for a, that's awful long. And I'll give it a bunch of repeats. And I'll put it down a little lower in the mix. So that's toe down. Now, it's because I've moved the knobs and the expression pedal is kicked in, it's remembered that. Now I kick it toe back, and I can set the mix there, and it should remember that. Now if I go toe up, it goes back to the longer, mellower delay, and then I kick up into that sound. I can go ahead and save that off as the patch, and I can move on to delay 2. Now delay 2 right now has some minimal training on it. Delay 3 has no training on it at all, so I could train that. So you can train in each individual one individually, you know, which is really nice, so that you can. Well, let's go ahead and do it. So we're going to go toe. Let's go toe forward with this. Let's set it for a lo-fi delay. So we put the toe forward, run a lo-fi delay. Let's give it kind of the opposite. Let's see. Let's put real short and real intense. Oh, for that, you know, let's use a more clean delay to really hear it, and we'll put a big mix on it, and then toe back. We'll make that more of a rhythmic delay. And now we can go from anywhere in between. Save that. And now, when we have both 1 and 3 on, we get 2 different delay characters, if that makes sense there. So there's all kinds of things we can do with that, which is a lot of fun. You know, often, and again, with the tone print system, because it's remembering it's learning the knob positions. With the tone print system, you could have a number of parameters being affected with this. And remember, you can set those curves in the tone print, which is a really, really, really nice feature, I think. The question, if you notice, I was, made some kind of dramatic ones that aren't necessarily particularly musically useful and got a little muddy. That's just part of, programming, just so you can hear it. I often find that with presets, you hear it on machines at a shop. I think Roland Boss is sometimes sort of guilty of that. They make it so dramatic that the presets can be almost unusable, or often unusable. I find. But it's for a demonstration. Though this, is you don't have menus and things to navigate to deal with all that. Um, as far as the sounds, can it self-modulate? Speaking of true bypass and things, I think for quite a while in the early 2000s, will it self-modulate? Will it gent? No, which seems to be a thing now, which I think it's hard rock. Paul muted stuff. But I think in the 2000s, atmospheric bands like Radiohead and things that people were listening to would sometimes have a delays that would go on forever. So the question is, will this self-modulate? It really doesn't. It really doesn't. Plus and minus there. It's the thing about it, and I've had old delays from the 8080 analog delays to the SDD 3300, had one of those. Oh gosh, the Korg DL8000s. Just so many delays I can't even think about. Symmetric 606, great. These kinds of things. And you could set a lot of these things to just go into runaway repeats. What I do think is nice about this, will it self-modulate? No. No, it won't. But it's very well behaved. Which when you get into those runaway delays sometimes aren't. They can be speaker blowers and you wind up hitting a panic button, or, having to put a brick wall limiter on it, or, big compression or what have you. If you're running it into console or these kinds of things. So I think that it lasts plenty long. And it's well behaved. So I actually think it tends to sort of promote experimentation and promote improvisation and kind of real-time use. It doesn't even do the buzzsaw. It controls that, because you're not going to run into those runaway things, and you can really play with it. It's the nature of the models. I think the other thing about it is the time. If you notice, it's not. It's doing kind of time slices, so it's almost like changing the time is taking different taps. It's not changing the virtual clock speed, really, as such. I think with the overall delay time. And one way to tell is it's not changing the pitch to an appreciable degree, which tells me it's dealing with the addressing, kind of like how long the tape is or how many buckets it's going through or that kind of thing, as opposed to speeding up the tape or speeding up the clock speed on an analog delay. Pluses and minuses, you don't get quite that pitch effect, but, and it does, you get a little bit of a slicer effect, when you change it, but it does kind of maintain some signal integrity there, which has its own use. And you can do the modulation, you can set up, modulation for kind of the chorusing, so you can get the virtual effect, of a modulated delay. So you can add that, you can add in that the modulation is sort of kind of added on top, so you're not restricted to just clock speed chorus. You can, like we're seeing, through zero flanging and whatnot. So that's I think it's a very useful compromise they made there. Or I'm not even sure if it's a compromise so much as a design decision. Now, a couple things, is it perfect? Absolutely not. but I think it's a solid system. But if you notice, there's certain things about the programming that can be a little problematic, I guess you could say. Uh, Number one, I really like the color. It's this kind of nice, not a bass boat glitter, but a metallic blue, which is really pretty, really, really pretty. Of course, the problem with that is you can see right there, those are LED strip lights, not fluorescents. Um, but I think it can be a little hard to see in certain environments on stage and whatnot, because of that kind of glare. Uh, I kind of would prefer, I think, it's a very artistic, but I think I would kind of, for operations, would prefer kind of more matte type of finish. It seems maybe a nitpick, but, because it is a little bit of a hands-on effect, that would be nice. As far as, the overall programming, it is one preset per. There's no banks. So, as you saw with a couple of the different demonstrations, I had to go kind of program all three. So, it does not have individual banks, which, would be um, kind of neat. But, that may have a little to do with, the hands-on nature of it as well. I mean, yeah, you could make a more complex system and have all that. But I think, as a pedal, it's more of a real-time type thing, so it's not a menu dive into a bunch of presets. Um, excuse me. Another kind of odd, not odd, I mean, they had to make a decision. Uh, but it's interesting that, and you've seen me, I think, have the occasional hiccup while demoing some things, some setup. You do get used to it, but this the switch here, which is the active delay being controlled by your programming, is can be a little odd because you might be listening to number one, but if the switch is in number two, you're like, oh, why am I not hearing anything at all? Well, I'm actually programming delay two, which we're not hearing right now, and I'm listening to delay one. So it's just something to be very cognizant of, that I have it on delay one, and it's something you will get used to. I haven't played with this one in quite a while, doing some other things. Um, I've had this for a few years, uh, but so it's one if you're in active use, I think you get used to it. But it is a little quirky. The other thing is, because it's I come from the synth over there is an old Sequential Circuits Pro one that I've had for about 38 years. Uh, and I'm used to where that has no presets. Where the knob is what you get. WYSIWYG, that's what you see is what you get. This because you are using different engines uh, with these knobs, and you do have a preset. Uh, you you may find a you will often be in a situation where the knob. Okay, go ahead and save that. And we're off. We have number one set, and we're off programming number two. Well, of course, as we program that, we may have substantially different knob positions. We'll go ahead and save that. So then we find ourselves in a situation where we're back to number one and we're programming it. Well, the knobs aren't going to match, of course. And this is common if there isn't an LED ring or these aren't, infinite rotary encoders, where you couldn't really see, where you are unless you have that LED ring, or motorized knobs, which we're starting to see like flying faders on mixers. But Chase Bliss made one, and there's the synth company, the Melbourne Melbourne synth company is doing motorized knobs. So that's kind of neat. But if you don't have that, you're stuck with the knob not being where the sound is. And so it can be sometimes a little trying as to where the where the actual knob is. Um, And the thing is, it instantly recognizes a knob change. So even if it's over here and I move this knob, it's going to accept that value, the new value. So it can be a little confusing, and you just got to get kind of used to it, and tune your ear to listen to it and just realize what you're doing. So those are things you just got to get used to with the unit. But that's not that much different than any other unit. I think with this just kind of system, um, it's actually pretty rich. So you're just going to have to get used to the system anyway. It's not. It's maybe, and maybe that's why they discontinued it. It's a soundscape type thing, an experimental type thing, I think, and so it's made for that kind of user. The other thing about it is, and I think they could, I wish they would have made a little change, I think, to this, because they are, because the unit is sensitive to the control changes, and it's logging those. Now, um, if I find a sound I like, and it's substantially different, I go, oh, I like that sound. Okay, well, I'm going to go program a complement on number 2, and I come off to number 2, and I've turned that off, and I come back. Well, it's gone back to the original before I edited it, because it doesn't, when I turn it off, it doesn't save and edit. Let's, there we go, we'll do that. So I like that sound. We'll go ahead and we'll save that. So there I am with that sound. Nice sound. I'll do some changing. Ooh, that's pretty nice too. I'll save that, or I won't save that. I go, ooh, I like that. I'll turn that off. When I turn back on, I come back to that original sound to save the program. So again, turn it on and off, comes back to the original. But to save the new version, I have to hold it down until the light blinks green, so about 2 seconds, and then it's saved. Then if I come back to it, it's going to be the new sound. That's not unusual. Tech 21 does it. A number of, that's fairly common to hold to save. But I would like it in software. I think they could have very much, like with the true bypass versus buffered bypass. I would have liked to have seen kind of a WYSIWYG mode where if I've changed it, maybe automatically save it. I think for real time playing, if I'm doing all real time improvisation, if I'm doing more type synthesizer type work, I might, come back on and off and do that. And I'm not saving it as a preset for a later performance. And I think they could have done that in software, which would have been a very nice, choose which way you want to do it. Which I think would be more effective, because as I was talking a little bit about, I think where this really works is atmospheric stuff, textural stuff, with a delay that's as long as it can get. It lends itself to, I think, a lot of, it's a pretty long delay. It lends itself to a lot of looper type effects, and triple looper, you have different speeds of loops. Ooh, that's not in tune. We better stick to single notes, kids. what have you. So it's a very atmospheric type of thing, and you can really set up sort of three. I mean, I think it's a 7 second max time on each one, so you can set up a bunch of different kind of looping. It's almost more of kind of like early Frippertronic type things. Um, and that's one place where I really like this kind of system. I think some of the loop pedals are the dedicated loop pedals are designed as more of a band in a box, where you play a little drum piece or a little rhythm piece, and then that's saved almost as a recording, or it's designed to be used more as a recording, and then you solo over it, you play over it, and you've seen some of the artists that'll do that. They'll play a little drum piece, and then they'll go over and they'll, play little keys, and then they'll go and they'll do a maraca and that kind of thing. I think this is a little more the purely kind of tape loop feel, where um, you've got some tape loops that are playing. With the delay times, you may not have them exactly locked. The tap tempo will go, but you may have, you're just how you've decided where your time is. Um, might be a little bit different than one another. So you get these kind of nice phase dances and things. And to 7 seconds, 7 seconds of loop time is pretty generous for that kind of stuff where you're doing little phrases. So I think that's really where it fits is um, your textural guitarist, your atmospheric, your ambient guys. It really works. Sadly discontinued, but they are very reasonably priced. And I'm actually for what the where they are in the ecosystem, I think it's a very solid device. Anyway, I have taken up about 45 minutes here, so I'm going to let you get back to your day and not take up more of your valuable time. Leave in the comments if you want me to explore the tone print system and describe that in a little more detail. I certainly could do that without a problem. But I really appreciate you listening in my little rat's nest review of this product.